5, 4, 3, 2, 1, 0.
Real people, real issues, real life. Talk Recovery Radio. Live from the heart of the downtown east side, it's Talk Recovery Radio with Giuseppe Ganci and Darren Gaylor on Vancouver's Co-op Radio, CFRO 100.5 FM. From the streets to the studio, bringing you addiction recovery stories from real people with lived experience and real experts on today's issues. Tune in live every Thursday, noon to 1. Powered by New West Recovery. Real people, real issues, real life. Talk Recovery Radio.
And good afternoon, Vancouver. Hello, hello, hello. I'm here with my co-host, Mr. Darren Gaylor. Hello, Darren.
Hello, Giuseppe. Hello,
Hi there.
Talk Recovery listeners, viewers.
Welcome to the show. Every Thursday, we come to you live. And if you're watching us on YouTube, click subscribe. If you're listening to us on a restream from iCloud, no, not iCloud, iTunes to SoundCloud and all this Spotify, follow us and share. And if you're watching us live on Facebook, awesome. We're 1 week behind on Vancouver Co-op Radio. I'm still working on trying to get the show live on the radio too, but we're not back in the studio yet. Darren, good to see you. It's been kind of a hot week here in British Columbia. For those of you that follow some of our social media handles or my personal Facebook page, we had some comments made from our top doctor in BC, Dr. Bonnie Henry. She is the top provincial physician. She said some words in a media document, in a media story by City News about opiate users not being able to stop using, and just a lot of stigmatizing language in an article, basically saying if you use opiate use, abstinence is not an option, shouldn't be an option, shouldn't be tried. And we did a little bit of an awareness, and you had two camps. You have the one camp, we're taking her comments out of context, and then you have the other camp, dead people don't recover, and then we have the other camp, I got clean, I'm 10 years clean, 5 years clean. And so we lit a bit of a fire. I don't know, I'm not going to change the world with a Facebook post, but it's just really hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of comments, reshares. So we launched a letter campaign asking people to write a letter to their MLA, and you can go to our Facebook pages to see that, and you put your postal code in, your MLA gets a letter, and all it is saying, if it's a misquote, then let us know. If it's actually what you believe, then we need some clarification. Like, is it all opiate users? Is it 15-year-old opiate users? Like who can't stop using opiates? And really the main thing is if you read in between the lines of her recent reports and narrative on this issue, it's about retraining doctors. And everybody thinks, yes, doctors need to be trained. They've done trainings. There's been trainings for Suboxone, funded by Indivor, and there's medication assisted treatment trainings that have all taken place, and now we want to do trainings on safe supply, which is needed. It's needed. This isn't about being against safe supply. It's about who's going to do those trainings. So we going to tell doctors that people can't stop using opiates? And are we going to say abstinence recovery doesn't work? Is that where we're at today? That's the question. It's nothing. It's not really people shouldn't go on MAT or people shouldn't. Where's the policies for tapers? If people want to taper off their meds, where is all of that? And so we're asking our people that are pro abstinence recovery, who actually gotten clean from opiate use disorder, on the working groups to train these doctors. It's a pretty blank statement, a pretty carte blanche statement that opiate users can't get abstinence. And then, you're misinterpreting that. And I'm like, well, it's a quote. It's pretty clear. And it's been over 72 hours and there's been no retraction. And I'll let you jump in, Darren. If she had said, safe supply doesn't work, or safe supply isn't the best approach, or consumption sites aren't safe, it would be front page news of retraction. But 72 hours has gone by, and she basically has said, Darren, I got to say one more thing. Sorry. Further to that, grossly, stigmatizing, unethical description about fentanyl. Here's this privileged doctor who probably got, driven to the hospital, got her colonoscopy, got picked up, and went home to this beautiful house. And she quotes in the article, fentanyl's a great drug. I can see why people enjoy it. Like, what? Fentanyl is not a great drug. It's killed so many people. If you were prescribed and were able to not get addicted to fentanyl, that's great. But it's not a great drug. It's killed a lot of my friends. And so that's why we got fired up to do this. And I swear, Darren, you're going to get a sentence in here. To all of my friends that care about me, like, I'm not losing my mind over this. Like, it's just raising the awareness that people can recover and can get clean, and to have this carte blanche language. So my day yesterday was, I went and gave back to some charities, 3 specific charities. I hung out with Dylan and Michael, for a couple of hours. They're, I'm Uncle G to them. I'm okay, because I got a lot of emails that, are you okay? And I'm like, I'm okay. Like, I just want to make sure the newcomer, when he goes to his doctor's not going to say, hey, don't even try getting clean. It doesn't work. So that's my rant. Darren, you're next.
I mean, I don't think, for most intelligent people, platforms such as Facebook or any type of social media, it's how I was informed of what she said. Like, I'm not sitting down watching the nightly news, and you know what I mean, or have time to read the newspaper, you know what I mean? And that's a statement, like you said, whether or not it was misquoted or whether or she truly believes in that is important for so many, not only those struggling in addiction right now, but for someone like myself who has been abstinent off of heroin for 16 years now. That, like, yeah, like, as you say, stigmatizing, or it's just offensive that to think that with that statement, someone in my situation today isn't going to be provided the option that I received, isn't going to be even directed to abstinent-based treatment, that I would be told that it's just going to be a failure for you, that you cannot, and these are the professionals that would be telling me this, right? Like, I was lucky enough at the time that an addiction specialist literally wrote me on a prescription pad, go to abstinent-based treatment. Didn't prescribe me methadone, you know what I mean? And we could all have the argument that wasn't, taking care of my situation. But I think we had been seeing each other for quite some time, and my situation, based on his professional and ethical training and personal experience, knew that for myself, that would be a plausible and possible option. Mm-hmm. And as a result, I'm 16 years absolutely 100% clean. Tomorrow is actually my clean date.
That's right. It is. Congratulations, Darren.
Yeah, and I also know the hardship. I also know that if you had tracked me, like, if they said, okay, here's a heroin addict, let's start tracking them, let's do the research. Like, for 10 years that I used heroin, you would have found multiple relapses. You would have been tracking a heroin addict who went to multiple treatments and multiple detoxes, and right, the higher rate of relapse conclusion would have been truthful. However, it didn't end there. If they kept tracking me, they would have tracked that during a certain circumstance and with, support and doctors' advice and with, my admission into an abstinent-based treatment center, they would attract different numbers at that point. So to even bring up numbers and research, it doesn't equate to what's actually true, you know. And so, yeah, like, to say anything so black and white that's where the problem exists.
Exactly.
And I
that's
think
the problem. And
Yeah.
that's why we, for our stakeholders, and you're one of our stakeholders, Darren, for our alumni, we have thousands of them, their stories matter. And so this show's put on by New West Recovery, which is part of Last Door and Westminster House. Like, we have to say something. Like, hello, like we exist, like people exist. That's Recovery Day. Those people, Dr. Bonnie Henry, and we'll leave it here. September 10th, Recovery Day.
Yeah.
I ask you to come to Recovery Day on September 10th, 2022, Uptown New West. Go on that stage. That's the crowd in 2019. Go on that stage. And I ask you to repeat your quotes that abstinence recovery does not work for opiate users, and that abstinence will not work. So I invite you to come on that stage. And you know what? You got my email. I've emailed you. Actually, a couple thousand people have emailed you according to our letter campaign. So yeah, your invitation's there. September 10th, 2022. Come on this stage and tell all these people that abstinence recovery doesn't work. Giuseppe at my email address you got. Thanks. So Darren, let's switch topics here, and let's talk about, well, actually we're not switching topics. We're talking about the same thing. We're talking about recovery, because that's our show. We get to talk about recovery issues every week on Thursdays on Vancouver Co-op Radio 100.5 FM. And you know what, today we're doing a show about our friends and our colleagues, because it's that week. Darren, who are we talking recovery with today, and why are we talking to these three fine gentlemen?
We're talking recovery today. We've got Peter Becca, program manager. We've got Mike McKegg, addiction counselor. And we got Stu Barrington-Foote, program coordinator, all from Last Door Recovery Society Youth Program. Welcome to the show, boys.
Hi, guys.
Thank you for having us.
Yeah.
So, I mean, we're personal friends. We friends of the show. I've known all you guys a long time. Peter's known myself since the day I got clean. It's good to have you on the show, and we're talking about the youth program. It's such a topic in our healthcare, you know, that there isn't very many options for our youth struggling in addiction. And it's a big deal because we're celebrating an important anniversary. 25 years, like 25 years of offering addiction treatment to youth out in New Westminster in the province of British Columbia. Peter, what does that feel like?
I feel old. That's what that means. It's something to be really proud of. You know, it's 25 years of providing treatment supports to families and youth who want to find treatment for addictions. And I've been here since ground zero. So for me, it feels like a huge milestone in province of British Columbia with a lot of our provincial government programs. 24 is actually considered like when you merge into adulthood. So I guess our program's merging into adulthood. Federally, I think it's 29. So we've got a few more years federally to get recognized as adults, but we're definitely well on our way.
Right on. Mike, how long have you been at the youth program?
I've been an employee for 8 years. I volunteered for about 6 months before that. So you know, I mean, you think hear that and think about like almost like a third of the youth door's existence I've been here. It's pretty cool.
Yeah. And what about you, Stu?
I have actually been here for 7 months longer than Mike.
Oh, whatever.
And I like to remind him all the time about it.
So it looks like someone's counting.
For sure.
So let's talk about, you know, for our listeners, like, what is the Last Door Recovery Society Youth Program? Like, what is it about? You know, who's who's able to come. I mean, you know, like what's the point of a youth program in the healthcare system? You know, like we've just sort of talked about a little bit, like it's so convoluted with, you know, should somebody be completely abstinent? Is that causing harm, you know, with relapse, and especially with youth, they're so young, you know, the potential for relapse, they're never going to get it the first time. Like what do you say to all that? Peter, why don't you take this one? You know, what's the offering here?
Well, we're a 10-bed program for identified male, 13 to 18 years of age. We provide supportive abstinent model for youth to find recovery. And so the abstinence is really just a small part of what Last Door offers. I mean, that's just sort of a foundation for someone coming into treatment. The actual recovery or treatment piece is like, how do you live? How do you repair relationships? How do you find an identity, a sense of purpose in your life? How do you build self-esteem? What are your goals? What are your dreams? How do you connect to a community and feel part of a community? How do you heal and sort of fix and repair some of that stuff, that stuff on the inside that goes on and comes with addiction? Like when I came to Last Door, I was a youth, so I've got an investment in the youth program because I entered the Last Door adult program as a youth when I was 1990, so 31 years ago. And, they didn't treat my addiction any differently than they treated the adults. I felt actually inclusive. I felt that I had a voice, that my opinion mattered, that my path of recovery was like I had choices and options. So kids coming here, that's what we want to give people. We want to give them choices. We want to give them options. And most importantly, we want to have fun doing it. So we laugh a lot around here. We celebrate a lot. Everything's a milestone to us. We were up at our farm yesterday and all of our kids did a gratitude circle and each person sort of identified something in their life they're grateful for. And at the end of the day, I'm driving home feeling like I can't believe I get paid to do this because it's just the greatest job in the world. So that's why we do what we do.
I mean, I couldn't imagine, coming from a place of being a teenager and having an addiction so severe that's required, treatment and within a community model, and it being sitting down with a white coat therapist, and clocking in and there is the potential for relapse, for any age, but maybe more so youth who feel like they haven't experienced life yet. And is it a big deal that we show that treatment, that recovery is fun, is something, that can be found entertaining, that can be found, we're looking to release dopamines, we're looking for, serotonin that we've masked with substances, from an early age. Like it's got to be a big deal that this is also a very serious circumstance and situation and events that have led up to needing treatment, but that if you need to come back, that we can remember how, like you say, inclusive it actually felt, and how much fun we actually had, and how involved the families were. Like, is that part of it?
I'm gonna have to default to our fun specialist, Mike here.
Fun specialist, yeah. Well, I mean, like the rec stuff, like going out and enjoying life, doing it with other people is such a huge part. I mean, it's like your question, it makes me think about part of the intake process that we go through. If somebody's calling here, they're thinking about wanting to send a loved one to this program, we encourage them to come do a program visit, or see the place, meet the staff, meet some of the guys that are here. And it's really interesting to me how almost all the people that come here, they walk in the house and they're like, oh, this is like a house. Like they expect like a hospital setting or like a prison or something. I don't know where that idea comes from, but I mean, they walk in and the whole group is super excited to like shake their hand to welcome them, whether it's the parent or another youth. Like the guys that are here, like, are so motivated to try and help somebody feel welcome. And it's, I think that like for that really counters a lot of the beliefs that people have about like what like an abstinence supportive treatment program would look like. These are youths like me. They're having fun. They're living like interesting, enjoyable lives without drugs and alcohol. And I mean, it's usually a pretty big eye opener, something that's pretty cool to witness.
I actually think about it, and it's a cool story because we're gonna get to hear from him soon. That we have one of our guys who comes in. He was homeless. He was living on the streets of Wally, and so coming to the program was estranged from his family. And so obviously being a youth program, we like to do rec stuff. We take the guys go-karting, paintballing, want to have fun doing it. So, but we're going out to do something like that. It was like, why not invite your dad? So the youth I'm talking about, he brings his dad paintballing, right? And you could just see like the smile on his face because he was estranged from it. He was living on the streets in behind a garbage can in Wally. A lot of damage. And then he's sitting there like, having one of the best days ever. It's just one of those moments, like the best day ever.
Shoot your dad with a paintball gun, like,
and then talk about shooting your counselor. It's fantastic.
That's one of the. Sorry, Darren. That's one of the main things that you guys touched on. People don't know what recovery actually is for our youth, and so there's moms and people out there that are watching this show, moms and dads, terrified on what to do with their kid. Like their kid is, and some people don't believe it, but the kid is smoking fentanyl by choice. Like that's their drug of choice. They want fentanyl. And so we live in a world today where it's just like, how do I get my son to even consider this? So what are some ways that can help a mom or a dad or a family member or a friend get their youth interested or even contemplate this idea of getting clean and sober?
I mean, it's always, I think partly to what Mike was saying earlier, is like, phone us, like call the Last Door Youth Program, 604-520-3587. We're here 9 to 5. Speak to an intake worker. Like our staff are trained in dealing with addictions and supporting families navigating our system of care. We provide referrals, we connect them with counselors. Like we're trying to create hope in people's lives. So it's always like looking at what are the next steps? How do we help someone engage? How do we help give them that information that gives them like a really clear picture of what youth treatment is? That's why we do our soft start intake process so that the family can actually come on site. Like Friday, we have a mom coming here. She's going to do a tour of the facility. She's actually scoping us out because she wants to see who we are, what we do,
you're gonna have her kid,
Yeah, she wants to make sure her kid's landing in a safe place. We're a licensed care facility, so we meet licensing requirements. I always recommend families do their homework when they're looking at drug and alcohol treatment programs. You really want to do your homework. You want to do tours, you want to connect with the counselors, look at qualifications and all that kind of stuff. But if you can do a site visit and you come by here and you get like, they'll sit down and have lunch with our guys and they'll talk about what being in treatment looks like at Last Door Youth Program. And they'll talk about how they're healing and changing their lives, what they're learning about recovery, what they're learning about their families, what they're learning about themselves, what they're changing in their lives, the things that they're challenging, the things that they feel really proud of, their accomplishments, like all of that kind of stuff is rolled into that conversation. We want people like feeling hopeful about sort of helping their loved ones find treatment.
What is treatment ready in the case, like generally speaking, for a youth? Like is it detox? Is it requirement of detox? Do they need to see a psych doctor? Like what does that look like? Because I mean, things are pretty chaotic with every individual. It's always different, right? I mean, but like there's a parent, their kid's crazy. They don't know what's going on. They don't know where to go next. What do you guys suggest first step is?
Like I would say 90% of the guys we work with don't want to come to treatment. That's the truth. I think that's a big difference when it comes to youth treatment compared to adult services.
Not a lot of, I'll quit drugs forever.
Yeah, I am ready to quit. Let's do this. Sign me on up. I don't think that happens as often. right? Or sometimes it does. And being treatment ready, it's a kind of it's a hard one. It's like, yeah, sometimes we get someone here who does need to go to detox or does need to be stabilized in a hospital. But for most of the time, the first step is just have them give us a call, right? And have them come by and see the guys. Because I'd say that 90%, most of the time, what really tips it is what like Pete was talking about, a soft start, and having guys come by, meet the individuals, meet the staff, realize we're not a jail where people are locked down in lab coats.
We're going to work with the families to find out what those next steps are. So as soon as you make that first call, we're going to connect and start giving you some sort of next steps to work on. And if a person needs to go to a hospital because they need to get stabilized for some acute mental health symptoms, maybe that's the next step for that person before entering treatment. 90% of the time, it's like if you can get through the front door and consent to trying 30 days of treatment, because a lot of kids have this it's difficult. I know for myself, it's really difficult to see myself clean for the rest of my life. I don't even know if I can still see that, to be honest with you.
Yeah.
But going into treatment, I could do 30 days. Like they said, well, why don't you try 30 days and see what you think of that? And after a week, I remember I started feeling better. You're sleeping better. You eat some good food. You get around some positive energy. You go to some mutual self-help support groups. You connect with a counselor. You go paintballing or a couple rec activities. And I can already, laugh your butt off a couple times. And you're already seeing it start to happen. And you're starting to feel better and more, inspired about being clean and in recovery.
You develop a different opinion and a different outlook, 15 days out of the cycle, out of the addiction, out of the, mom and dad barreling down on us. Is it fair to say like 100% of your first point of contact is with mom or dad? Like, or the youth themselves calling for an intake?
It doesn't happen as often. It has, for sure has every now and then, but a lot of time it's a mom or a dad. It can be a counselor. I've had a principal of a high school reach out to me like, hey, I got a kid. I haven't talked to the family yet, but I think you're the first people we should talk to.
We had the kids at the youth door sneak someone into the house once because they wanted to help them. So someone that was going to mutual support groups, they connected with them. They snuck him in the basement. They were like, well, can we keep them? So, we had to connect with some professionals and get some referrals and use the proper streams. But the referral can come from anywhere. Anyone can make a referral to treatment.
Yeah. Now I'm curious. So, you do an intake, you're gathering information of the individual that may come in. Do you need to know specific drugs or substances? Does mom or dad or whoever the adult calling, do they have any clue, or do they generally dumbfounded with it's just a behavior that's they can't comprehend? Do they have an exact, like, yes, my son is using this much fentanyl every day, or he's using methamphetamines or whatever, and like, is that important information? And also a question is, because that's information I think a lot of parents, even myself, I'm 16 years out of addiction. I don't know what the kids are using nowadays. Like, I don't know the terms and the names. You know what I mean? Like, so there's another level of ignorance, I think, as far as, what the parents, specifically know about their kids. Does that impede?
It helps to know. Like, it definitely helps to know. If you have the information, it's going to help at intake, and it's going to help stabilize someone in treatment. But every kid that comes through the front door is going to have access to a medical professional who's going to meet with them and do some drug screening and provide some information to help with withdrawal symptoms. Right? Quite often families don't know. I mean, I do say, and I say this every day, we're losing people in BC at an astronomical number, that if you don't know and you're concerned about your loved one, access naloxone and have it at home, and just familiarize yourself with symptoms of overdose so you potentially save a loved one's life. But specifically knowing, not quite often. I mean, when I was using drugs, I didn't tell everyone in my life, particularly my family, what I was
Right.
using.
And I think for some families too, like, so I know I've spoken to a lot of moms and dads where it's like, I need to know like all the little details of it, because for them they feel like sometimes it's going to solve that internal conflict and the fear and the code of all that stuff going on, where sometimes knowing everything doesn't help, and it creates more fear.
Yeah.
When focusing here, like a lot of times the guys will come in and yeah, they're using more, there's the bigger story which we find out while they're here, but is it going to help, you know, that person reconnecting with their mom? Is it going to help that person like learning how to find recovery? I don't think so.
Does it,
Yeah.
does it stop self-centeredness? Does it stop this dishonest behavior? Does it stop, you know, that destructive, you know, like the hopelessness that you're living in when you're experiencing addiction? Not at all.
Yeah. Yeah, it's something that we've talked about on this show quite a few times. It's the whole notion. It's like, okay, we don't care what you did and how much you did and where you come from. It's like, what are you going to do about it today? Because that's going to solve some of these issues. And I love that. It makes it so much easier. It's like, okay, because everyone's got bigger, stronger, bolder, faster, scarier, meanest stories. It's like, the only unity piece is like, what are we going to do about it so we can be healthy? We're talking to Stu, Mike, and Pete from Last Door's youth program, which is celebrating its 25th anniversary. 25 years of helping teens 13 to 18 years of age recover from substance use issues, alcohol issues, gaming issues, all that kind of stuff. And Pete's been there for a long time. And so Stu and Mike, thank you for all the work that you do. On May 14th, we're actually having a small get together. Small, a few hundred people. It's going to be at the Massey Theater. You can go to our Facebook page to get tickets. You can call our program. You can get tickets online. Lots of our alumni and staff are selling tickets. They're $25 each, and it's just an evening to celebrate recovery from addiction. And we help kids. They help kids recover from addiction. And we've got one of those kids in the waiting room right now. We're going to bring him in, and then let's see if he's able to connect. I see connecting to audio. I see him on mute. There he is. Jacob. Hey, Jacob.
Hello.
Hello. Welcome to the show, Jacob.
Thank you. Thank you.
So Stu, Pete, and Mike have told us about your entire history of all the things you've done. No, I'm kidding. Welcome to the show. We like to talk about recovery. We're talking about Last Door Youth Program's 25th anniversary, and I know that you struggled a bit. Why don't you let people know how old you were when you showed up, and just a snippet of what it was like before you showed up to rehab.
Yeah. So when I showed up to rehab, I was 17 years old. I just turned 17, and I thought my life was over. I never get to use drugs again. But at the same time, I really, really hated what I was doing to my body and to my family. And I reached out to Last Door, and willingly, I'm the 1%er. I'm the guy who I would say, like, I'm one of the only people who actually like was begging for a bed. Before that, I was sleeping behind dumpsters. I had a specific favorite one behind this fresh slice that would give me free pizza all the time, and like every day was a grind. If I was stealing money, it wasn't going towards food or anything. It was going towards drugs and anything else that I would have left over. I would hustle for like food or whatever. And, it wasn't a lifestyle. I really just wanted a bed to sleep in. And coming to Last Door, they had really comfy beds, and I sat on one. And because for years and years, like I would go out and use for 2 or 3 weeks, and then I'd come home to mom and dad's and act like everything's all fine. And I'd have like 4 or 5 backpacks with me, go throw them in my bedroom, and then fall asleep on the couch for 4 days because I've been up for 2 weeks, right? And that was a day in, day out grind. I didn't know what I was doing to my family. I thought I wasn't an addict because I wasn't falling asleep, like nodding off and stuff. One day, like my dad tells me, like while I'm in recovery, he tells me, yeah, like one time we came downstairs to or we came upstairs from we just got home, and you were like sitting on a chair with your head in between your legs, and you had been there for like 10 hours or something, because there was a big pool of drool on the floor, and you had been like sitting there with your head in between your legs. And here I am thinking like everything's all good. I wouldn't remember waking up screaming in pain, or like fighting with my family, calling them really bad names. And like coming to treatment, like I started to realize like what I was doing to my family. Most of the things I didn't even know I was doing to my family, right? And like Stu said, I was listening on the Talk Recovery Radio, by the way. Talk about the paintball. That was such an amazing experience. But like, yeah, like what Stu said, like I came here and I figured out more about my addiction than I had bargained for, right? And you know, like not only did I learn about my addiction, but I learned about how to like practice recovery in my life. And when I came to the youth door, it was on a program visit. We do these little program visits, kind of like a test car drive, which is what Peter always says. And you know, like if you're gonna buy a car, you got to test drive it, you know, take it around the block and stuff. So I did that, and I did it for a day, and I really liked what everyone was saying. I went to the group therapy in the morning, and I remember like one of my best friends now, he was getting like yelled at the time because he was being like really shady and stuff, and I was getting like praised, being like, yeah, this guy actually wants to be here, like why are you even here? And I was like, yeah, I want to be here. And like I just got fired up for recovery like day one, day in and out, right?
And you're still friends with that person?
Yeah, I was gonna see him today.
And I'm glad that you said all this, because there's so much of focus on the drug piece of addiction. What drug do you do? How are we going to help you with that drug issue you have, whether it's an addiction or a disorder, whatever your flavor is? But like everything you're talking about is friends and people and community and culture and just all about everything else. So you're in rehab now, and you're making friends. You know, when did you have that moment that like what's different for you? Like, why is there a 17-year-old not wanting to find a new way to live or stop using? Like when was that moment for you? Do you know? Is it a moment? What is it? Well, what is it that you are still here, friends with that person in group, still here and on a show? Like, what was it?
Well, like when I came to treatment, like I still didn't know if I wanted to be clean, right? And the guys like kind of like huddled around me. 8 or 9 guys lined up to shake my hand as I came through the door. And like it was that kind of love piece. And I didn't know if I wanted to do this, but one guy just said, like, what do you have to lose? Your addiction's always going to be out there. You probably have a good, like, I don't know, like 20 more years in you if you go out there. But if you do this, you probably have a good like 60 plus years, right? And that's to say that like I'm healthy and everything, but like I don't know. Did that answer your question?
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, there's no wrong answers. I mean, that's the one thing. I mean, we all get stuck on like, what is the journey? And it's just like it is what you say it is, and that's the beauty part of this. It's like your success is defined by you, not by anybody else, and it's a beautiful piece of recovery.
Well, to be able to be put in a position where I can readjust my reasons, or that question, do I want to stay clean? Do I want to be clean? Do I need to be clean for the rest of my life? Like addiction, no matter how old you are, you'll hit such a bad point. You'll know right then and there, I know I need to get clean right now, right? Like that's sort of the motivation at the beginning of treatment, making the phone calls, going to detox, seeing a doctor. Like I know I need to be clean right now. But when do I ask myself that question again? And if I'm just on a medication train, or if I'm not, you know, living my life and building esteem and feeling the energy of being with, around a group of people, having fun, I'm never going to ask that question. I'm never going to be given the option. And it's, I don't know, just listening to your story, it's like, yeah, of course you needed to be clean, but you also need to be given an option of asking yourself, like, is it worth it? Am I living a life worth, continuing on being clean? Can I go get education now? Right? Because, at the day one mark, it's like, no, I'm never going to be able to do school again. Like life with my family is never going to improve. Like, it's so doubtful and it's so negative. And, just to hear you got the chance of asking all those questions and determining for yourself, like you're still, how old are you now?
I'm 20.
20? Like, imagine that. Like, you got still your whole life ahead of you, man. Like, it's, you know what I mean? Because of a place that like believed that anybody can like get to a point of not being dependent, taking some time and making some decisions for themselves. You know what I mean? Like, just because we're youth doesn't mean we need to be told by any sort of authoritative, government that this is how you're going to live the rest of your life. And I just feel so grateful that there's places like the Last Door Youth Program that's giving people that option, that's giving people that time and space to get to a spot where it's like, yeah, I'm 20 now. I'm still choosing to be clean. Right? Good for you, Jacob. That's
very good for you.
How long were you with us, Jacob?
Oh, it was actually 1 year, 6 days. Yeah.
Counting.
I was yeah, well, I remember counting like up until like 6 months, and I lost count, and I just said, like, you know what, it's whatever, if I'm here for 2 years, I don't really give a damn, because like I love this place. I call it home all the time, and I still come back. I got a job there.
Yeah, better than eating pizza behind a dumpster, that's for sure. And the elephant in the room, Peter. So a lot of people think, well, we can't force kids to do recovery, and we can't, that whole conversation, and the kids are dying. We can't just do a show and everything's great and recovery is wonderful and we're all on. Well, I'm always on a pink cloud, but we're like, it's not always pink clouds. And yeah, some of our alumni sadly are gone way too soon. And so how do we talk about that without doing, recovery doesn't work for kids? So how do we handle that?
I think it's really the conversation is it's your choice. So quite often kids will come into treatment and say, I'm not sure if I want to abstain from substance use for the rest of my life. And we're like, fair enough. Like, I'm not the person to make that decision for you. And I'm not the person to make medical decisions in your life. You have to make those choices with a physician and your family and your supports and the people that you think are going to help you make the best decision. But while you're here, let's take a period of time where you can actually get some recovery, spend some time, like in an environment where you're going to be supported, where you're going to, like, I think Jacob, out of the year that he was with us, I bet you I spent maybe a few hours talking about drug use with him specifically. And then the rest of that year was really focused on his family relationships, being a brother, being a citizen, connecting to a peer group, getting back to school, mental health counseling supports. Like, what do you want to be when you grow up? How can we help you? If you're struggling and you're not sure if you want to be abstinent, like, how about we give that a day, and tomorrow you might feel differently about it. And if you don't feel differently about it, then that opens the door for another conversation. But it's really about just having that conversation, offering choice, right? Like giving someone that choice to decide, and also letting them know that recovery is it's not just abstaining from substance use. It's healing. It's being a part of something. It's finding purpose. It's having fun. It's you know, like going back to school and being a brother and shooting your dad with a paintball gun. That's recovery. That's part of that story, and that's part of that, you know, healing that happened in Jacob's family. And you know, I think 6 months into it, you stop counting, even though it's really valuable. Like I don't know exactly how many days you have clean now. You've been clean a significant period of time, and it's by your choice. We're not choosing that for Jacob. That's Jacob's choice. He's chosen that way of life. We're just offering people the opportunity to live that way.
And we've even had it where guys have been in treatment and have said, like, you know what, I don't think I want to stop using substances. We talk about, okay, what are areas of your life you would want to work on? And what are some things you would want to improve in here? What are the areas you do want to work on? If it's family relationships, health, like all that type of stuff. I've had alumni who haven't stayed abstinent, who still, you know, in contact with, said, you know what, I'll never forget what I've learned while I was in treatment there. And it's helped me move forward in my career and schooling and my family. Just because they're not abstinent doesn't mean that this wasn't had a massive impact on the direction of their life.
Yeah, and if they choose not to become abstinent, then the conversation is about the risks that are associated with that, and the supports in our community that can help people navigate that decision if that's what they decide to do. So it's really based on the individual and the choices they make.
It's so common sense. It you know, like we talk about recovery, we talk about abstinence, and Giuseppe at the top of the show talks about these camps that are like, oh, you're abstinent only, and like it's just like, no, man, give somebody a shot. Like here's my point. No human biological body needs any form of outside substances after, like, even if that body used heroin for 20 years, that body does not absolutely need it after 30 days. It's all just, you know, emotional coping from that point, you know, weaknesses in here and there, and self-doubt, and, you know, that makes us want to put it back in our system. And, you know, all you're describing is getting somebody to a point where it's just like, for a little while, you might think a bit more clearly. You might have a different emotional response. And if that's a horrible response, here's some tools and here's some support to, you know, to go through some things all on your own without any outside, you know, masking. And how'd you do? You know, like Jacob, like you must have had some tough days. How did you do? Did you learn something profound about yourself that, you know, you could get through something difficult, uncomfortable, awkward without any sort of masking?
Yeah. I often say this to people that like in treatment now, that like some days are going to feel like a vacation and some days are going to feel like you're in prison. And like it definitely felt that, like I definitely felt that way, at least for the first, like, I don't know, 90 days. Every day was like I was in prison, right? I literally felt like there were cages around the house. I couldn't leave because if I did, I was going to die. So where else was I going to be, right? And to overcome that, like it was mainly about trying to build connections around the house.
Can I stop you there, Jacob, for a second? In hindsight now, okay, were they real cages? Like now that you like now that you can see from the other side, like because what you just said there is really strong, because people that actually don't complete treatment, like they have this time warp idea of what it was like that first 3 weeks, and it was horrible, yeah, horrible. Now in hindsight, like, were they cages? Was that real? Was it, you know what I mean? And the way that you think they were cages, obviously there's a door, and when, you know what I mean? So was it really that bad?
No, it wasn't. I made it out in my head to be that bad.
Oh my God, did you? You know what I mean? And I only know that because I went through it. Darren's like, we've all, like, I remember, like, oh my God, this is horrible. And then it's just like, what? Like, and not to devalue anyone's experience that it wasn't real. It's just, I remember, relapsing, coming back and really believing that I didn't belong and these rooms were a prison and everybody was talking shit about me. And some of it was real, but the reality was people were really loving me and I couldn't see it. I couldn't love myself. I couldn't let other people love me. And I'm glad that you said that because it reassures it for me. It reassures it for our show that we're not insane, like asking kids to recover from addiction if they ask and choose, So I just really want to appreciate your courage and honor your courage to you're not the 1%. Like let's throw numbers out there. People are asking for help. The problem is they can't find it. People are looking for help. The problem is that they have to go to Google or they get stuck, in this bureaucracy. And so what the real fight is trying to figure out how to get more Jacobs in front of us so we can help them. And it's unfortunate that it's not easy. And that you had to like wait for a bed. I mean, it's insane. Can you imagine if we had to wait in the emergency room for weeks to get help? I mean, we cry about 5-hour waits. Can you imagine if it was weeks? So hands to you, Jacob. Really appreciate it. It looks like Darren's got another question.
I think we should just maybe make note of the importance of the family program aspect of whether your folks actually were involved, you know what I mean, from the staff's point of view. Also, like, how soon do family members get involved and how necessary is it, and how does that affect outcomes?
Quick as possible. The sooner they get involved, the better. I know Jacob's family intimately. They were participants in our weekly family support group, and they also accessed our 4-day family enhancement retreat program, which really is a more intensive program for families seeking to heal from addiction. And what that does is it gives families opportunity to look at their own part in that, and how they can sort of take care of themselves. How do they heal? How do they have boundaries? How do you rebuild a relationship with someone in recovery? Because you're used to having a relationship with someone that's in active addiction. That has to change in order for that person to sort of be in your life in a way that's different, that supports the work that Jacob was doing. And watching them grow together as a family was, like I said, and I say every day, I can't believe I get paid to do this job, because it's just the awesomest thing to watch people, their lives heal and their families connect. And like Jacob, I'm sure you've got your own perspective on sort of how that was, seeing your family in the family program. Like, what was that like for you?
Yeah. I don't know. When I got word that they were actually going to the family program, I wasn't surprised, because they had been like so involved in my recovery and like trying to get to know what the steps are. They came to like almost every meeting where I took a milestone at, key fobs and stuff. And like, I wasn't surprised when they went. And then the staff told me, like, so you guys are going to go up there on Sunday and you guys are going to surprise them when they're up there. Don't say anything. No one say anything like that you guys are coming, because when you walk into the room, everyone's going to be like, oh my God, you guys are here. Oh my God, I love you so much. We're learning so much up here and stuff. And it was that thing, like right after that, I gave them a big hug. I hugged my mom, I hugged my dad, and then we sat down and we listened to some an alumni and a mom talk about like their story. And that mom also went through the program, or went through the family enhancement also. And he went up to surprise his mom, and he got to talk about what it was like for him going up there for that, and like what it's like being an alumni. And now I'm in that state. Right now I'm an alumni, and my family has gone through the enhancement program, and I'm still clean. My family's doing recovery with me. I think my dad's listening in the other room. And
Do we
yeah,
give
yeah.
we give our youth a supportive environment. We give them some options with, you know, along with their family. We give them the ability to have some fun. We give them the ability to learn tools, to be accountable. We hold them accountable, right, to their choices and the consequences of those choices. Like, you're free today, Jacob. You're free to choose to be clean and be in recovery. You're free to choose to not do recovery. You're free to choose drugs today. Like, you're absolutely free, and you have all those options in front of you. And everybody that's ever struggled or, you know, been born should have that same right. And I mean, it must feel great to be able to, you know, to be a young man, 20, gone through some struggles, right? Currently, you know, recovering from that, and having the choice in front of you. And I don't mean to end on a political note, but you know what I mean? Like, to not have to just like go somewhere and get your methadone to get through another day, you know, and not have that freedom to choose, you know. I don't know if that's
Well,
what
we'll end it on, you know, building recovery capital and a recovery oriented system of care so you can live your best life. And if that involves safe supply, it involves safe supply. If that involves Matt, it involves Matt. If that involves 12-step meetings and getting clean and sober, then more power to you. It's all about better health. And I'm just glad that this is what we do, and we do this really good. And for people that want to be part of this, be part of it. If not, there's lots of other things out there that you can do, and go hang out with Dr. Bonnie Henry, I guess. So you're listening to Talk Recovery Radio. You know what? It's all about putting smiles on people like Jacob's face and his family. So thanks, Jacob. Thanks, Peter.
Jacob.
Thanks, Stu. So May 14th, we're celebrating Last Doors Youth Program 25th anniversary. Tickets are $25 each. Give us a call, 604-525-9771, and we'll get you some tickets. You can buy tickets online. Go to Last Doors website, Facebook page. You can see a lot of information, or you can call Stu on his cell phone to get tickets. And let's see some great fun on May 14th. It's going to be at the Massey Theater here in New Westminster. Lots of stuff coming up, but we're running out of time. Thanks for listening. You'll catch us next week. Darren, always good to see you.
Good to see you guys.
Thank you, Vancouver Co-op Radio. Take care, everybody, and have a great rest of the week. Bye.
See you, Jacob.